If you're looking to become a psychologist, then let this be your guide. With this podcast at your side, you'll be on your way to being qualified. It's the Aspiring Psychologist Podcast with Dr. Marianne Trent.
Hi, welcome along to the Aspiring Psychologist Podcast. I am Dr. Marianne Trent and I'm a qualified clinical psychologist. So if you're listening to this in the first week of its release, then you might well be aware that in the UK, the clearinghouse applications have not long closed. They closed on the 16th of November. So you might be listening to this trying to think about, my application's gone in. Now I've got to wait till spring. Or you might not have chosen to apply this year or not been eligible to apply this year, or not maybe even thinking about going down the clinical psychology route. But you could be experiencing a number of different thoughts and feelings whilst you're listening to this episode. So I just wanted to get on board with whatever you are feeling and thinking. And if you want to talk about it, do come and join us in the Aspiring Psychologist community group and let's talk about it in there. So today I thought we'd think about finding your tribe and why that can be so important. So come to a psychology career, you'd usually need to be at least beyond the age of 21. You're usually post-degree. So you might already have had experiences, good or bad, in your secondary education, your sixth form education, and your undergraduate, and maybe even your postgraduate education that have felt either good or bad in terms of feeling well connected, well supported, and well understood by those around you. You might feel like you're in a really good position where you already have your tribe lined up. I certainly spent the weekend with three of my tribe, people that I met at undergraduate university. So I had course friends, psychology friends, and I had the housemates that I lived with. And so I was with my housemates this weekend, and it was lots of fun. And I definitely, as I said, consider them my tribe, but they're not necessarily my psychology tribe because none of them were studying psychology and none of them work in that sphere. But I know I've spoken before in one of the early episodes about my experiences of working in a local government agency. Makes it sound slightly more exciting than it was. Makes it sound like I'm kind of some sort of Will Smith character, but that's not the case. But I was working for local government, and I just felt like I didn't really have my tribe around me at that stage. So all of my psychology friends were living in different areas of the country. I wasn't yet working in a psychology service, and I just was feeling quite lonely and quite isolated. If I was offering advice to myself now for then, I think that's what this episode is going to be. And it might be useful for you right now, it might be useful for you in the future, or it might be useful for people that you meet along the way. So I'm going to be taking you through a few different steps and stages that might be useful for you or someone you know, for making the most of where you're at right now to just optimally feel supported, understood, validated, seen, heard, and like people know you, see you, and are on your page. That's what I think about as your tribe being. So with no further ado, let's crack on. So I think the first stage is to think about, well, who are they? You might want to think about making a list about if you were being optimally supported, seen, understood, validated, who and what would be doing that for you? Would it be stuff professionally? Would it be stuff personally? Or would it be, a mixture of those things? Might even be something spiritual or religious or faith-based for you. But if you had to kind of get a nice big bit of paper and just encourage yourself to freeform doodle, if you like, or note take if that's more up your street. who and what areas of your life might that include, that you'd want to cultivate? So for me at the time, I guess, I had a partner at the time and we had an active social life in that regard, but I was probably a bit lonely. I think one of my friends who I was previously seen quite a lot of had a young child. And so we did that, but we didn't necessarily do the socializing in the same way. So I think I was a bit lonely, and feeling a bit career isolated. So, this was in the late 2000s and things have moved on somewhat since then. So I'm gonna advise myself and / you about what things you can do right now, that might be useful. So one of them obviously is thinking about whether you can join groups, and that might be groups in person. It might be groups, remotely. It might be joining Facebook groups. It might be joining, I don't know, different communities, online that don't involve Facebook. It might involve, joining clubs as well. So at this stage of my life, I decided that I would drag a friend along and we'd learn to do Chinese cookery. So we went to an evening class and learned that. So there might be some other skills and some other ways that you can connect and have fun and enjoy things, that might not look like you might imagine they would look. I was looking on my local recovery and wellbeing academy, for example, recently. And on that, there's loads and loads of free courses that you can go to or that you can refer your clients to as well, that sound really exciting, really nice opportunities to learn things and to do things, that you might not have experienced before. And similarly, in the adult education provision near you. So if you were to Google adult education and whichever is your nearest city or town, there might well be stuff that you can look through there. And, you could learn another language, you could do some cookery, you could do some baking, you could do some craft. Some of my clients enjoy, metalwork and glass fusion and all sorts of stuff like glass blowing. There's many, many opportunities for you to do new things, and they don't always need to be massively costly things as well. So could you look at what activities or clubs or groups you could join? And of course, it might well include looking out for any local research groups or any local assistant psychologist or aspiring psychologist groups. And I'd be remiss if I wasn't to say that people have made nice connections through the Aspiring Psychologist membership as well. So that might be a group that you might like to consider joining. Details are in the show notes. What you might find during all of this process is that throughout this, you find yourself as well. And maybe you realize it was yourself you were looking for all along. But you might exacerbate that by perhaps joining part of a therapy group. Or I think when I was an aspiring psychologist, sometimes there were like dynamic group therapies that you could join. And if you were a student, there was lower cost options available as well. So it might be worth Googling whether that might be a possibility for you. Or of course, you might be able to enter into a one-to-one therapy relationship, which might well help you now, but might well help you professionally as well. So that's something else to explore. So let's take this opportunity to have a little break, and I'll be back along very shortly.
So many tips and lessons to learn from. So many things that you can try. The Aspiring Psychologist Collective. The Aspiring Psychologist Collective.
Welcome back along. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you're finding the content useful. Can't quite believe we're at episode 50. I don't know where the time is going, but it's been a lovely journey. And thank you for all of the kind words about our recent episodes. And like I said in episode 49, if you are an aspiring psychologist and you've got a useful or interesting story or take on the world, then do please get in contact with me. And we will see whether we can get a podcast episode happening with you at the centre of it to provoke and encourage important and useful conversations for people. Okay, so in the first half, we've covered 3/4 different points for thinking about finding your tribe. And in this section, we have 3 more. So we're going to go through 3 more ways that you might be able to find your tribe, or things to consider when finding your tribe along the way. So the next one is saying yes. If you can, when you're offered opportunities at work, if it feels a little bit scary, but just about within your comfort zone, then could you say yes? Could you explore what that might, look like for you? Or when you're offered chances to do things socially, could you say yes to that? Or if someone does phone you up out the blue and say, do you fancy a Chinese cookery course? Could you say yes to that? So obviously make sure you're staying safe, make sure you're looking after yourself, making wise choices. But what could you say yes to? And when you're offered things and you immediately think no, what might that be about? Of course you get to choose and you get to say no. And if you really don't want to do things, you don't have to do them. But if we notice that we're having an immediate, oh no, I can't, or I shouldn't, or I mustn't, it might be worth just exploring and gently pressing the edges of what that might be about. So just to be a little bit more playful, a little bit more curious as you consider what you could say yes to, or what you could say, I'm going to just give that a go and see what I think to, rather than, out and out saying no to something. So that's just another little option, another little idea. And the next of our suggestions is reflection. So could you use your reflective journal, or just your general musings whilst you're stuck at traffic lights or driving along the motorway, to think about all of this process, really, to think about your experiences? You might well find it helpful to listen to the episode where I talk about important people I have met along the way. And if you wanted to have a listen to that, that's episode 33 of the Aspiring Psychologist Podcast. But reflection really is the thing that's going to make the difference for you in terms of, being at peace with yourself, I think. So I feel like I am constantly reflecting, but in a way that feels really comforting. It doesn't feel critical. It feels helpful and exploratory. And like I'm on my own team. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to knock myself down, quite the opposite. If I have an idea, I think, how could you make that happen? Or what's holding you back? What's stopping you from doing that? And, how might you benefit from having that as your inner monologue rather than something that might feel a bit more mean? So yeah, if you would find it helpful, please do have another listen to the episode on compassion as well. And that is episode 4. Knew it was. I had to check. Getting to be quite the expert with these episode numbers, but don't like to falsely signpost you. So yeah, it's just reflection in a way that feels not overwhelming, in a way that feels like you're not being overly neurotic. It's just, I don't know, like a nice companion, almost like I can have a chat with myself. I can have a chat with someone that has the same values as me and wants the same things. I guess it's about becoming your own best friend. And I never feel lonely, when you're your own best friend. But it's also about, challenging yourself to get out there and make new friends and to, have those opportunities. So, absolutely, if you're more of an introvert and you like to keep yourself to yourself, that's okay. But when we do say no more often, there might be less opportunities for us to find the joy or to find new experiences and find our tribe along the way. And certainly, when I was working as an assistant psychologist, many of the people who I was working with as fellow assistants now form part of my sort of daily tribe, even now I'm qualified. And again, people that I that I did my training with, that were part of my tribe then, continue to be part of my tribe now. And even 2 of those in the last couple of days I've spoken to as well. So these might not necessarily be relationships just for now that you're cultivating. These might be longer term, maybe forever relationships as well. So when we're looking at different qualities of relationships, I don't know if you've heard this, but we can think about friends for a reason, friends for a season, and friends for a lifetime. And sometimes we'll have disappointments when we realize that what we thought was friends for a lifetime became friends for a season. Okay, so friends for a reason we often think about as being for a specific kind of purpose that you've expressed. So, for example, if you're going through grief, or if you had, someone who's unwell, then you might seek out people who have similar experiences. And so there's a reason that brought you together. A season might be, whilst you have kids in the same primary school, or whilst you're working in a certain workplace, or, whilst you're living next door or nearby to somebody. And friends for a lifetime could be any of those who then become longer term friends. So your friends for a lifetime might be someone that you went to primary school with, it might be someone that you went to secondary or uni with, and they suddenly, they go past the point where it was for a reason, they go past the point where it's for a season because that thing changes, and then they progress into friends for a lifetime. So, for example, if I reflect on some of my assistant psychologist friendships, then initially it was friends for a reason, shared a car to the same university to look around an open day, and then it became friends for a season because we used to meet for lunch while we were working there, and now it's friends for a lifetime because we're choosing to make time for each other, even though when we first met it was fast approaching 15, 16, 17 years ago, something like that. So, we weather the storm and we choose to make time for each other. And that's how your tribe becomes formed. So when it goes perhaps from reason to season to lifetime, and, but you can still have a tribe who don't choose to keep in the long term, who just use really mindful ways of connecting to this season or this reason. But yeah, it's useful to have at any time, I think, a group of people in your life that are reason, a group of people in your life that are season, and a group of people that are lifetime, because you get a different energy around all of that. So what do you think? What do you think to this? I would love to know. And of course, the final point is that we can recalibrate at any point. So if we do feel like we are missing some of these people in certain areas of our lives, we can recalibrate and reach out and change it. So yeah, I do hope you found that useful. My whistle-stop tour through tribe making. And yeah, I would love your thoughts, as I say. And yeah, please do check out what other people also say in the Aspiring Psychologist Collective and the Clinical Psychologist Collective. I've got lots of great guest episodes coming up for the Aspiring Psychologist podcast soon. If you've got any in mind that you would find useful, then please do get in contact with me via the podcast page on my website, which you can find details in the show notes, or it is www.goodthinkingpsychology.co.uk/podcast. And then you can also find out how to leave audio testimonials just with a few clicks of your mouse by that same page, that same site. So thank you so much for listening. Please do rate and review the podcast. It's always so appreciated. And I'll look forward to catching up with you for our next episode, which is available to you from 6 a.m. on Monday. Don't set your alarm. It'll be there when you're ready. Take care.
If you're looking to become a psychologist, then let this be your guide.